Delta 547, wind 19016, runway 22 right, clear for takeoff.
Runway 22 right, clear for takeoff, Delta 547.
Taxi via Juliet.
Air traffic controllers protect our nation's airways. These are the stories of real air traffic controllers to boldly deliver a safe, orderly, and expeditious flow of air traffic from their departure point to their final destination.
Wind 19016, runway 22 right, clear for takeoff.
Runway 22 right, clear for takeoff, Delta 547.
I'm curious, you're talking about military aircraft, these jets are extremely fast, but they're sharing airspace and, commercial and otherwise. So when it comes to, I don't know how that works, you've got, say, cargo, commercial, and there's commercial jet, and then maybe something smaller, and how do you mix that up? I mean, you can't necessarily, I don't know, just bring them in one right after another. How does that work?
Dana.
Dana, why are you gonna bring Dana?
Well, Dana, of course we got
Okay.
a super, you're following a super, what, a 6 miles radar separation?
Yeah, we got a separation.
And then you got all
for that.
kinds of stuff.
So at PDK, which we had 4 flight schools, which I like. A lot of times the student pilots will come over and say, hey, I'm a stupid pilot. And I say, I know. So, but we did. We had our jets coming in. PDK had a lot of celebrities, just like Hobby, will fly in there. So I got to...
That's Peachtree DeKalb?
Peachtree DeKalb in Chamblee, Georgia, where I worked there for about 4 years. And so when we had our student pilots, as well as, Cessnas and little Pipers coming in and everything else, so we had our jets come in and got to get them off the runway. So we have our reduced separation, 3 miles on some of them. And that's very interesting because a lot of times when I had a Cessna come in and she wanted to do a touch and go. So she actually did several touch and goes and kind of went like towards a ravine. I said, verify this is a full stop landing after this. She said, nope, I'm gonna try it again. And she flies over. So to me, working with student pilots was the way to get rid of all of them. I said, wait a minute, I'm new, I'm not too good at this. And they said, we're departing the area. And that was my story for them. We're departing. It was just to get them back in because yes, working with when they have low hours really made a difference. But also I worked at ZHU. So I found out that Robert Reese used to do aerobics.
Bob Reese was an aerobics instructor.
Yes, instructor, yeah.
Where
At ZHU. I just found that out from another controller.
Rob's back over there right now.
Yeah, he's hiding now.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, you need to watch the video where Bob, Robert, our good friend, and he tells a story about one time at Houston Center, he challenged a guy to the mile run, and it's on the channel. And it is funny.
Kyle Nichols.
Yeah, it is a funny story. Yeah, it's a funny story.
I got to see that.
Bob challenged him to a 1 mile run around the track, and they all went out there. You got to watch it.
I got to watch that. KK told me, he said, hey, make sure you let him know that he did. I said, oh, I didn't know that. So now I'll definitely bring that up. So that's why he's in shape.
But we had there's different separation standards. If you have horizontal entrail separation, there could be 3 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles, I think is the furthest. Okay, and it depends on the weight of the aircraft. Yeah. So,
also,
go ahead.
I was going to say it's rare that you're going to be mixing military fighters with commercial aircraft. For the most part, you don't have a lot of airports with. I mean, it does happen, but the only place I can think of when I was at Andrews, but they had 2 runways. So any of the military fighters or whatever, we used them on the right runway, and where everything else was on the left. But it's very seldom you have fighters and commercial aircraft that you're mixing.
Well, when I was at, several places, but when I was at Corpus, right west of our airspace was Navy Kingsville.
Okay.
So all of their planes would come in, do their practice approaches at Corpus. And it was kind of funny because when there was a new flight school, either from new pilots from the Navy or we had flight schools at Corpus, part of your briefing was like, it's a new, there's a new class coming out. But yeah, you learn to now actually the radar scopes are so more advanced than they were before. They have a little thing, like we're talking about weight turbulence, the separations 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, miles, but so it'll be like a greenback between this plane and that plane. That means, you know, everything's good to go. Usually you have to, when you work radar, you use speed control. So we control the aircraft speed. So, you know, like for instance, 5 miles apart and 170 knots each will get you to the runway at 3 mile separation, which is the requirement. So you can do, and then, so, you know, but when it's a windy day, that instead of 5 miles, you need like 7 because it's windy, you know, they're into the wind. And so you every day when you get up, you have to look at what the weather is. What's the winds aloft? And is it a headwind, crosswind? Because when you're trying to separate planes and you turn one base and the next one base, literally the one with the wind will pick up 50, 60 knots. And the one against the wind is going to lose 50, 60 knots. So now you have to calculate. So you're constantly in your mind calculating mileage, the wind, the altitude, you know, and then the compression factor. So yeah, they started with, so part of your briefing too is like 5 miles will give you, you know, 170 give you 3 miles. But then tomorrow when it's windy, you know, your briefing is 7 miles, will get you 3 miles on final. So, you know, it's very difficult. But when I was at Corpus, we mixed military with, you know, civilian aircraft. When I was at Waco, there was Hood Army Airfield. So you put the, you know, the Army helicopters mixed in. So when I worked there too, Hobby, you have Ellington in the airspace. So you mix in there too. So the ones that I worked at, you know, with, you did mix. Even when I was in the military, I was at Honduras and Spain. So you had the Spaniards or the Hondurans mixed with the American pilots. And in the tower at Honduras, we had to coordinate with the Honduran air traffic controllers on whose plane was first. Like, my plane's first. No, my plane's first. You know, it was kind of funny, though. And then in Spain, the same thing. You had 2 local controllers, a Spaniard and an Air Force controller. And we had to coordinate our planes. And, of course, we were in their country, so they wanted to be first. But we're like, look, that guy's 10 miles out. You know, this one will fit. And then sometimes you had to go, let me just watch. You know, like just that. But, you know, that's, you know, my experience.